Alright, what is going on, guys? Today we are talking about Blackmagic cameras and the brand new 7.3 update that is supposed to remedy a few existing issues with these cameras. Not only that, it includes a few welcomed additions as well. So let's dive a little deeper and let's take a look. What's up, guys? Andrew Boone here, and on my last video I was talking about the brand new Pocket 6K Pro and how awesome it looked. I was planning to upgrade to it, but I held off, and I'm glad I did because I started hearing about little issues and little quirks that the camera had, including a blue screen tint, Luts weren't importing properly, and there were a few other little bugs with the software that made me not want to upgrade, so I held on to my original Blackmagic Pocket 6K. Now with the brand new update, it seems that Blackmagic has remedied all of these issues. Alright, so the first two tools that were included all have to do with exposure, and exposure is extremely important in filmmaking. So what we have here, Blackmagic has included an Rgb Exposure Tool. Not only that, they have peaking for each channel as well. Before, it was just a luminance exposure tool, which really wasn't that helpful. Now that it's RGB and it has separate channels for clipping, it's going to be a much more useful tool and visual reference to see how your exposure is. And if any of you have ever shot on a RED camera, this is a very similar tool. The only difference is that RED also includes the underexposure, the black clipping line as well, and Blackmagic only includes the overexposure clipping. These Blackmagic Pocket cameras have always had false color, but now actually being able to see the values is definitely helpful. So the most common issue that I was hearing about the 6K Pro would definitely be the screen tint issue. I saw that a lot of people were having a blue or green screen tint kind of problem. It didn't affect the image quality whatsoever, but it was definitely made it hard to actually reference your shot based off the LCD on the back of the camera. So what Blackmagic did to remedy this was give us a calibration tool in the settings. I'm glad Blackmagic included this, but to how accurate the actual white balance of your screen is and how calibrated it is, it's up to you, because it's going to be based off what your eye sees and what exactly you feel is proper white balance. So you can change the temperature and the tint of the screen to match what best looks, or guess what looks best to you. The next feature that was added that also has to do with the screen would be an auto dim feature. So Blackmagic cameras have always been notorious for terrible battery life, and nothing has changed in that regard. For the most part, the 6K Pro version has the new battery grip that definitely extends the life, but I'm glad Blackmagic included the auto dim feature because it will get just that little itty bitty bit more out of your camera battery and keep you shooting just a little bit longer. The next few upgrades were things that I've never personally had a problem with, but I'm glad to see that it has been improved. Number one would be focus peaking. I've never really had an issue with the focus peaking before, but supposedly it is much more accurate and easier to see. Number two would be importing Luts. And I've never had an issue doing that on the original 6K, so maybe this applies a little more to the 6K Pro version. But supposedly LUT import is more streamlined, and now it actually works. Number three, autofocus. We all know that Blackmagic is not known for their autofocus, and I personally never used it on the 4K or the 6K version, but I'm glad to see that it is better. I still will not be using it, but I'm glad to see it's better. Now we have two recording upgrades that are also very welcomed additions. So number one would be on constant quality. Before the upgrade, you were limited to Q0 and Q5. Now Blackmagic has included Q1 and Q3 between those. So this gives you a little bit more options in terms of compression and space saving when you're shooting, so that is great. Next, before the update, you could not shoot B-RAW in 4K at all. You were limited to ProRes. Now, after the update, you can shoot DCI 4K in B-RAW, but there is a catch. When you shoot B-RAW in 4K, it does crop in on the sensor, so you're not getting a full sensor readout. In ProRes, if you shoot in 4K, you will be getting a full sensor readout, so the image will be much more crisp. I'm glad Blackmagic added this, but it's not exactly the implementation of B-Raw and 4K that I wanted, but in a pinch, it's good to have. Last but not least, this update brings what is my favorite addition to the previous 4K and 6K cameras, and that has to be Gen 5 color science. Gen 5 color science is beautiful. I have yet to do extensive testing with it, but from what I see, it looks much better than the Gen 4 color science, and might I say, it even reminds me of an RE look a little bit. So the easiest way to see the difference between Gen 4 and Gen 5 is to do a little comparison. So I did a little shot of myself here. So let's take a closer look. We see that if you look at Gen 4, it looks great. Nothing really stands out too much to me. But once you start comparing it to the Gen 5 color science, you see how much Gen 5, or how much better Gen 5 is. First off, two things I noticed right off the bat would be, number one, the white balance. Gen 4 seems to lean very warm and very green compared to Gen 5, which is very accurate to what my eye is seeing. The second thing that I notice is, I wouldn't say the dynamic range, because the dynamic range doesn't actually change in the camera at all because of this new color science, but the perceived dynamic range is a little higher. You can see, for instance, in the highlights here that the roll-off is just that much better in Gen 5. And now don't get me wrong, they're both raw codecs, so honestly, whatever color you want out of them, you will be able to achieve. But I think Gen 5 gets you much closer to a finished look right out of camera and looks just that much better. I'm definitely excited to shoot a little more with these cameras now that this update brings a little bit of new life into them. But what do you guys think? Do you like the new update? Are you going to be getting the new 6K Pro? Should I be getting the new 6K Pro? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. But other than that, guys, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, bell notification, all that good stuff. And I guess until next time, I will see you in the next video.